My name is Margaret Collins, and on my 68th birthday, I learned what it feels like to grow smaller inside your own family. The waiter had just set a bowl of butternut squash soup in front of me when my daughter-in-law leaned over the white tablecloth and smiled like we were sharing a secret. "Mom," she said, glossy lips parting just enough to let the words slide out. "Are you happy with the $8,000 Ethan sends you every month?" The spoon in my hand tapped the rim. It sounded like a tiny bell calling a service I hadn't ordered. I was still wearing my sensible shoes from the library, soles squeaking faintly on the polished floor. The candles on the dessert cart flickered behind her shoulder. I swallowed and said, "Of course, sweetheart," because I could not imagine humiliating my son in public, because I was raised to keep the water still even when the river wanted to run. The soup cooled while the conversation warmed around me. Promotions, remodels, a ski trip in February, everything gilded and careless. The word happy echoed like a dare. Clara reached across and patted my wrist. "We just want you comfortable. We take care of everything now. The pronoun pressed down like a thumb on a bruise. Ethan was laughing with the sommelier about vineyards. He didn't see the way her eyes measured my reaction. I lifted the spoon to my mouth and tasted nutmeg, sugar, and something sour I couldn't name. The room smelled like money and sweet wine. I told myself not to shake. When the check arrived, Clara swept it into her clutch and kissed my cheek. "Best birthday ever," she said. I smiled for the camera. In the photo, the candles burn bright. You can't see that my soup was cold. When I got home that night, the house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. The porch light buzzed faintly, and the smell of rain lingered on my coat. I hung it by the door, though it barely mattered. The cold had already followed me inside. My son's laughter from dinner still echoed somewhere behind my ribs, his wife's words sitting on top of it like a lid. "Are you happy with the $8,000 Ethan sends you?" The question looped in my head until it stopped sounding like kindness and started sounding like ownership. I walked to the kitchen, turned on the kettle, and realized I had no idea what I was doing. My hands moved out of habit, opening cabinets, pulling down the chipped blue mug my husband had bought on our honeymoon. But my thoughts were elsewhere, pacing, scratching, looking for something solid to hold. While I waited for the water to boil, my eyes landed on the closed door of my late husband's study. He had been gone 6 years, but I still kept his room neat, the way he liked it, desk clean, books alphabetized, blinds half open. Sometimes I'd go in just to smell the faint trace of cedar and tobacco that lived in the drawers. That night, the air in there felt heavier, as if the ghosts of unspoken things were waiting for me. On the shelf by the window sat a small metal box with a sticker that said, "Tax papers keep." It had been there forever. I dusted around it for years without touching it. But something about Clara's voice, that bright managerial tone, had stirred an old instinct in me. I took the box down, the metal cool against my palms. Inside were old statements, receipts, envelopes labeled in my husband's careful handwriting. At the bottom lay a checkbook I didn't remember using. I opened it, half expecting blank pages. Instead, one check was missing, the first. And beneath the remaining slips was a single check written to C. Collins, signed with my name in a hand that looked almost right, but not quite. The M curved wrong, too tall. My real signature leaned left. This one stood upright like it was pretending to be proud. My breath came sharp and thin. I set the check under the lamp and stared at it. There was no reason Clara would need a check from me, unless she'd found a reason to make one herself. My first thought was that it had to be a mistake. Maybe a copy. Maybe something the bank misfiled, but a smaller, meaner voice whispered, "You let her handle everything. You signed whatever she asked." I closed my eyes and saw the night last year when she'd come over with a folder. "It's just paperwork, Mom," she had said, voice sweet with efficiency. "We're moving everything to a shared account, so Ethan can help you manage. This will make your life easier." I had trusted her. I had wanted to. My husband's death had hollowed me out. The numbers and bills blurred together. I'd signed while she poured me coffee. She'd touched my hand, saying, "You don't need to worry about details anymore." I thought that was comfort. Now I saw it was permission. The kettle screamed. I didn't move right away. When I did, I poured the water into an empty cup and forgot the tea bag. The steam fogged my glasses as I whispered to no one, "You don't need to worry about details anymore." The words tasted like metal. Sleep didn't visit me that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the check in front of me, the house creaking around my guilt. By morning, I had decided I needed someone who spoke the language of numbers better than I did. There was only one person I trusted for that: Thomas Reed, my husband's oldest friend, an accountant who had retired 2 years before. He and his wife had sent Christmas cards every year since the funeral, never missing a beat. When I called, his voice came warm and steady. "Margaret, what a surprise." "I need a favor," I said. "And your eyes, that sounds serious." "It is." He told me to come by that afternoon. I wrapped the check in a napkin and slipped it into my purse like contraband. Outside, the air smelled of wet asphalt and pine. As I drove across town, I kept glancing at my bag, as though the paper inside might start talking. Thomas lived in the same house he'd had for 30 years, a single-story place with ivy crawling up the porch. He met me at the door, his sweater frayed at the cuffs, his eyes soft with the kind of patience that comes from long marriages and long winters. "What have you got there?" he asked. I handed him the check without a word. He adjusted his glasses, studied it, and frowned. "You didn't sign this," he said. "I know your handwriting from the bake sale ledger. This was traced. Whoever did it didn't lift the pen enough." My throat tightened. "Traced? Are you sure?" "Positive," he said gently. "There are hesitation marks. See here?" He pointed at the tail of the S. "It shakes, like someone afraid to get caught." I sank into the armchair. The cushion sighed under me. "She had me sign a power of attorney last year," I murmured. "She said it was for emergencies. Did you read it?" I thought I did. Thomas rubbed his chin. "Margaret, you need to check your accounts. Quietly. If money is being moved without consent, that's financial abuse, especially when family's involved." The word abuse felt too big for the room. "I don't want to believe that." "I know," he said, "but believing doesn't change facts." He made a few notes on a pad, then tore off the page and handed it to me. "Go to your bank tomorrow. Ask to see copies of every transfer for the last year. Don't mention Clara's name yet. Just ask for verification." I nodded, though the idea of confronting numbers felt scarier than confronting people. As I stood to leave, he placed a hand on my shoulder. "Your husband would have been proud of you for checking. He hated loose ends." Driving home, I realized how long I'd been mistaking politeness for peace. The rain had stopped, but puddles still clung to the street, reflecting pieces of the sky. I thought of Clara's question again. "Are you happy with the $8,000? And for the first time, I had an answer forming inside me. No, I wasn't happy. And I wasn't finished, either. Banks smell like toner and old coffee. The next morning, I walked into mine with my good coat buttoned, as if buttons could hold a spine in place. I asked to see a manager and was shown into a glass office where a ficus leaf pressed the window, like a curious face. The woman across from me wore a silver watch and neutral lipstick. Her badge read, Sonia P. I'll be brief, I said, setting my folder on the desk. I may be operating under a power of attorney I did not knowingly grant. I need copies of whatever you have on file and a record of transfers involving my pension. Sonia didn't flinch. She pulled up my profile and turned the monitor. We have a durable power of attorney listing your daughter-in-law, Clara Collins, as agent, she said. Executed 8 months ago. There are recurring transfers from your pension to an account in her name, followed by deposits into your checking labeled allowance. Would you like water? No. Thank you. My voice sounded smaller than I felt. Please print everything. She printed, stapled, and slid a manila envelope toward me. If you want to suspend her access while we review, we can restrict activity today. Not yet, I said. Please don't contact her. I need to understand the scope first. Sonia's tone softened. Understood. Here's my card. If at any point you feel unsafe, we escalate. Outside, winter air worked like smelling salts. I sat on a bus stop bench and phoned Thomas. He answered on the second ring. We have paper, I said. Good. He replied. Bring it. And breathe. On the way to his house, I passed a storefront clinic with a flyer in the window. Elder Justice Project. Know your rights. I went in without meaning to. The receptionist looked up with the tired kindness of people who see too much truth before lunch. A young attorney in a navy blazer appeared and offered her hand. I'm Maya, she said. What's happening? I told her enough to make it real. The birthday dinner, the we handle everything now, the shaky signature, the transfers labeled allowance. She listened like someone carrying water across a room, careful not to spill. Oregon allows one-party consent, she said. If you're part of a conversation, you can record it without telling the other person, gather statements, dates, and documents. I'll prepare a revocation of the POA and a letter asking your bank for an internal review. Don't confront until you're ready to put truth on the table and leave it there. She set a small digital recorder on the desk. Carry it, she said. Use it when control shows up wearing care. What about my son? I asked. Love can help or hinder, she said gently. Facts don't care which. Keep your circle small until the facts are nailed down. At home, I practiced with the recorder, capturing my voice saying, the mail is here, and the kettle's boiling, until I sounded like myself again. I saved each file twice, named them with the date, then slipped the device into the pocket of my skirt like a secret that had agreed to behave. Ethan called that evening to confirm Sunday dinner. Clara's making short ribs, he said. You'll love them. I used to, I said, letting the sentence end there. On Sunday, their house smelled of rosemary and garlic. I clicked the recorder on as I handed over my coat. Clara's smile was bright enough to bend a spoon. I paid your property tax last week, she said, stirring a pot. Autopay can lag. I don't like surprises. That's thoughtful, I said, touching the recorder through fabric. I also moved your utilities, she added. We handle everything now. There it was, the phrase seated like royalty. I nodded as if gratitude had weight. Ethan wandered in with a corkscrew, kissed my temple, and asked if I preferred cab or Pinot. We ate under a pendant lamp that showed fingerprints on the glass. Conversation skimmed work and weather. I laughed when expected and stored words when I wasn't. After dessert, I excused myself and paused at the sideboard where the mail lay fanned. On top sat a statement with my name and their address. The forwarding sticker looked like a bruise. Clara's voice floated from the kitchen. Ethan, dessert plates. The recorder warmed my palm like an amen. Back home, I transferred the audio to my computer, then to a flash drive, then to the cloud. We handle everything now. He never checks statements. Her confidence became evidence when rendered as waveforms. I labeled the files like a librarian who still trusted order to help. Monday, I brought the envelope from Sonia and the audio to Thomas and then to Maya. We sat at a conference table that had learned how to be calm. Thomas pointed to hesitation marks and traced loops on the supposed signature. Maya drafted a notice to the bank to freeze unilateral actions by Clara pending review and a revocation for me to sign. "We'll schedule a conversation at your house," she said. "Neutral ground. Food helps people sit through the sound of their own behavior." "Will Ethan be blindsided?" I asked. "If love is real, it will stand," she said. "If it isn't, let that truth be efficient." I set a date and planned a menu. I polished the good spoons because light behaves differently on things you've cared for. The morning of the dinner, I placed the recorder on the sideboard, charged and ready, not because I expected more words, but because readiness had become a form of mercy. When the doorbell rang, I steadied my hands on the chair back and felt the recorder's weight like a promise I could keep. The smell of roasted chicken filled my house before they arrived. I had seasoned it the way my husband used to like, with thyme and lemon. Though tonight wasn't about memory, it was about truth. The candles on the table cast soft halos against the walls. I polished the spoons until I could see my face and wondered if that mattered anymore. When the doorbell rang, my heart stumbled but kept walking. Ethan came in first, cheeks pink from the cold. He hugged me. That quick, distracted kind of hug adults give their mothers when their minds are elsewhere. Behind him, Clara followed with a bouquet of lilies so white they hurt to look at. "For you," she said, "they match your tablecloth." "Beautiful," I said, setting them in a vase. I didn't tell her lilies remind me of funerals. Dinner began like a script we'd all rehearsed too long. Ethan talked about a new project at work. Clara added details he forgot. I nodded and poured more wine, between bites. My fingers brushed the small recorder in my pocket, though I knew I wouldn't need it tonight. Every truth was already waiting here, sitting beside the mashed potatoes. When the plates were cleared, I brought out a wooden box carved by my husband in 1978. He'd called it the honesty box, a place to store papers that mattered. I set it on the table between us. "Your father used to say some truths deserve ceremony," I began. Clara smiled. "A tight, brittle thing. You're so sentimental. Mom, what's this about?" I opened the box and took out the check, the bank statements, and the revocation letter Maya had prepared. I laid them in a neat line, a lesson plan for grown children. "It's about my accounts," I said quietly, "and about trust." Ethan frowned. "Mom?" I met his eyes. "The money you think you send me first goes to Clara's account. Then part of it comes back labeled allowance. The power of attorney I supposedly signed, I didn't. This is proof." I slid the papers toward him. Clara laughed, too loud. "This is insane?" I did what any responsible daughter-in-law would do. I kept things organized so nothing slipped through the cracks. You said you were overwhelmed. "I said I was grieving," I answered. "That's the same thing," she snapped, then caught herself. "Ethan, tell her she's misunderstanding." He picked up the check and studied the signature. "This doesn't look right," he murmured. Clara's voice rose. "Are we really doing this?" She's confused. I filled in what she missed. That's all. Everything was legal. "Did you sign her name?" Ethan asked. Her jaw tightened. I completed forms she approved. "That's not an answer," he said. I folded my hands in my lap. "It's okay, Ethan." She answered. Clara pushed back her chair. "You're both ungrateful. I managed everything so you wouldn't have to worry. Without me, this family would drown in paperwork." I stood, my knees trembling but my voice steady. "Without you, This family might have stayed honest. For a long moment, no one spoke. The clock ticked from the living room, polite but relentless. Ethan finally exhaled. "Clara," he said, "you need to leave." Her mouth opened, then closed. She gathered her purse, her coat, her pride. At the door, she turned to me, eyes sharp. "You think this makes you strong, but you just lost me as an ally." "I never needed an ally," I said. "Just respect." When the door shut, the house seemed to breathe for the first time in months. Ethan stood in the silence, then sank into a chair. He looked 10 years younger and 10 years older all at once. "I should have seen it," he whispered. "You trusted her," I said. "That isn't blindness. That's love misapplied." He nodded, staring at the lilies on the counter. "They stink," he said softly. I carried them to the sink, dumped them into the trash, and rinsed the vase. The water ran clear, catching the candlelight. "We'll go to the bank tomorrow," I told him. "With the lawyer. We'll do this right." He pressed his palms to his eyes. "Mom, I'm so sorry." "Don't be," I said. "Sorry doesn't fix. Action does." When he left, I blew out the candles one by one. The house was dark again, but it wasn't the same darkness. It was clean, like air after thunder. I went to the study, opened the drawer where I'd kept my husband's letters, and placed the fake check beside them, not to keep anger alive, but to remember what silence costs. Then I wrote a note on an index card. "Never sign what you don't read, even from family." I taped it to the lamp where I'd see it every morning. Down the hall. The old clock chimed 9. For once, it didn't sound lonely. The courthouse was smaller than I imagined. Beige walls and tired carpet. The kind of place where justice wore sensible shoes. Maya walked beside me, steady as always, while Ethan followed a step behind, his silence heavier than any verdict. Clara sat across the aisle with her lawyer, spine straight, hair pinned tight, the picture of composure built from denial. When the clerk called our case, time slowed. Thomas testified first, pointing out the hesitation marks, the traced loops, the mismatched ink on the forged signature. Sonia from the bank confirmed the transfers, pension to Clara, then allowance back to me. Every fact landed like a small hammer, quiet but final. Clara's lawyer objected twice, both times denied. When they asked if she had acted with my permission, Clara's smile cracked. "I was helping," she said. The judge didn't answer, only wrote something down. I looked at her then, my daughter-in-law, the woman I had once hugged at Christmas, who had called me Mom, and I didn't feel anger anymore, only distance. The ruling was brief: restitution of funds, revocation of authority, 5 years probation, and mandatory education on elder law. The judge's gavel came down with a sound like closure. No applause, no cheers, just the small exhale of a truth finally allowed to breathe. Outside, the air smelled like metal and rain. Ethan slipped his hand into mine. "You deserved better from all of us," he said. "I deserved honesty." I answered, "Better grows from that." At home, we brewed tea and fixed the loose kitchen chair together. The screwdriver squeaked, and we laughed when it wobbled again. Life was returning in small, stubborn ways. Days passed. I reset every account, changed passwords, paid my bills myself. Sonia called to check on me, and I told her I was fine, truly fine this time. One afternoon, sunlight poured across the table, catching on the old vase I'd glued back together years ago. The crack shimmered like a vein of gold. I placed a single daisy inside and whispered, "Light finds its way." I don't think about revenge anymore. Justice already happened. What remains is peace, not the quiet you keep so no one leaves, but the kind that comes when you finally close the right door and let the air in. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.